Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome to the first Girls Got Sporty cooking show of 2015. Now you may wonder, why aren't you doing something New Year's Eve-y like a black-eyed pea recipe? And the easy answer, and I just turned on my stove so it's getting a little hot and spicy since there's a little bit of water on the bottom of my pot. But I'm not doing anything black-eyed pea-like because frankly I don't like black-eyed peas that much. And I think one of the really important things to take into the new year is that if you truly don't like a certain food that is supposedly healthy, it may still be healthy, I don't know why I did the quotes, but that doesn't mean that you have to incorporate it into your life. Now you might want to give it a couple tries and cook it a couple different ways before you really decide, yes, I like this, or no, I don't, because sometimes it does take a little bit of warm up to get you to the right place. But you know, if you really truly don't like a particular food, you don't have to eat it. There are lots and lots of healthy options out there. I happen to like broccoli a lot. I happen to like curry a lot. And I actually came across this curried broccoli soup recipe by complete chance because I was in desperate need of something with nothing in the fridge with an hour before I had to be at a Christmas dinner. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and get this started and then I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So what we're gonna do here, I've already prepped everything. The ingredients are in the description below this video in YouTube and will also be posted to the Girls Gone Sporty website. But I am starting with a nice hot pot. Everything I'm cooking is being cooked in one pot, which I love. I have 2 tablespoons of oil, so I'm just gonna go ahead, this is extra virgin olive oil that I'm using. Pop that right in there, and believe it or not, I know I hate measuring anything, but for you guys' sake, I went ahead and did it this time. So you can thank me or not, it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to add to that oil 1 diced onion. I love the sound of veggies sauteing. So like I said, I already cut this up earlier. If you want to pause the video if you're cooking along and cut it up and then unpause, that's completely fine. But I'm gonna add the onion to that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add our spices. So the spices can be adjusted up or down a little bit based on your personal preference. Like I tend to like things spicier. I tend to like a lot of spice. The original recipe, which I will show you in a second because it is a little bit different than what I'm doing, but I'll give credit where credit's due. The original recipe called for 2 cloves of minced garlic. I almost never have fresh herbs and spices on hand because inevitably they go bad, and I would rather just use the dried spices so that I don't have to waste product. So I really like garlic, so I ended up choosing to use 1 tablespoon of garlic, which is at the bottom of this. Then I ended up using just shy of 1 tablespoon of curry powder. Now the actual recipe called for about 1/2 tablespoon, so you can adjust that up or down. Now adding more curry powder will add more spice, more heat to the end product. And then 1/2 teaspoon paprika, and I probably added just a hair more than that, and 1/4 teaspoon cayenne pepper. If you like your stuff a little bit spicier, you can add a little bit more pepper. So go ahead and add all your spices into the onion, and we're gonna let that start getting all mixed up and nice. So we want those onions to start getting nice and soft and be good in the end. All right, so how I came across this recipe, because it's going to take a few minutes to really get these onions done, so I'll tell you. I had promised to take they're pretty much legendary, sweet potato fries to Christmas dinner at my parents'. And I knew I had sweet potato fries on hand, and I didn't really feel like going grocery shopping. I thought I had everything I needed, and actually the hour before I was due to arrive at Christmas dinner, I went and looked at my sweet potatoes and they were all rotten. So very quickly I had to figure out what I had on hand that I could actually make quickly. And it turned out I had pretty much nothing. So I looked in the freezer. I had a bag of broccoli, frozen broccoli, and I had some milk, and I had some spices, and I happened to have some some chicken broth and a couple other things. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I possibly gonna be able to make? And I picked up my spicy paleo cookbook because of course I love spice, so wanted something spicy. And looked in the back under broccoli to see if I could find anything that I could make with broccoli. And I looked at the recipe and realized, hey, I don't have everything they call for, but I can make some modifications based on what they had. And I did. So that's how I found this. So now that that is getting nice and sauteed, I'm gonna go ahead and add the broccoli. Now they call for fresh broccoli. Again, I had frozen broccoli when I made it the first time. I had frozen broccoli when I made it this time. If you're going out to buy product for this recipe, I would definitely suggest making sure that you buy the frozen chopped broccoli because they call for chopped broccoli. Well, I had the florets, so I defrosted them and then chopped them up. Now you'll notice that in the ingredients I listed in the comments below in the video, I said to use 1 bag of frozen broccoli. And that's just kind of your standard, you know, good size bag. That's what I used the first time I made this recipe. This time I decided I would like a little more broccoli, so I'm actually using 2 bags of broccoli, but you can use 1. It's what I used the first time and it was still really good. So I'm just experimenting because it's what I do. Toss that in there. Verify that I'm doing everything correctly. Looks like. All right, we've got all our food in there. Don't worry, my hands are clean. Mix that up so the onion and broccoli get nice and mixed. I love the smell of curry. If you don't like curry, you're crazy, man. So good. Give it a little bit longer because we really do want everything to get nice and soft. Now, the one other benefit of using the frozen broccoli instead of the fresh broccoli is that when I was defrosting it in the microwave, which is nice and quick and easy, and anytime I can take a shortcut, I do, it does already get softened up some. So, you know, fresh broccoli is pretty darn hard and crunchy. And so this sped up the process a little bit more. So now you're going to turn to your vegetable broth. Now, it can be vegetable broth or chicken broth. I happen to use chicken broth. What I have here is about 3 cups. That's what the recipe originally is calling for. But really, you only need enough to fully cover the veggies in your pot. But 3 cups is about what does it. I could probably not put the rest in there, but let's be real, there wasn't much left. So go ahead and set that down. And you're just gonna let the broccoli and the onion stew in the chicken broth or vegetable broth juices for a little bit. And like I said, I made a couple adjustments the first time around because I didn't have much on hand. So the original recipe called for vegetable broth. I used chicken broth the first time. I'm using chicken broth this time because it tastes good. I like it, but obviously you can, if you want to take a quick look there, you can see how that is all nicely mixed up. But you can choose, you know, to use vegetable broth or chicken broth. If you're going for a vegetarian meal, obviously vegetable broth would be the right choice. Same thing with the milk that we're going to add in a little bit. I'm using cow's milk. That's obviously not paleo. The original recipe calls for coconut milk, but you can use whatever kind of milk you prefer. Coconut milk goes nice with the curry, so that's why the recipe calls for the coconut milk, but that is not a requirement. You can definitely use plain milk, so I wouldn't suggest like vanilla flavored or anything, but you could use plain organic soy milk, or you could use plain almond milk as well. Now, like I said, I'm using cow's milk because that's what I have on hand. So we're gonna let that continue to heat up a little bit more. Now, one other thing, I don't have an immersion blender. And like I said, when I made this recipe originally, I was on a deadline and I knew that I didn't have the time to take the soup off the stove, let it cool a little bit, put it into a blender to cream it up, to make it a creamy soup, and then put it back on the stove and heat it up again. I knew that just wasn't gonna be in the cards for me. So I chose not to do that step. The original recipe called for an immersion blender to actually be able to blend up the product, give it a smoother consistency. I personally don't really like the consistency of creamy soups anyway, so I preferred having the chopped broccoli and the chopped onion not creamy. You can choose to use an immersion blender or, you know, let the product cool, put it in a blender, blend it up, give it that creamy, smooth consistency if you would like, but this is faster and it tastes just as good. And the product's still the same, so it doesn't really matter because it all ends up tasting the same. So it's just a personal preference in terms of end result consistency. All right, continue to let that simmer for a little bit. All right, at this point, because this would be the point where you would actually do the immersion blending. Since we're not doing that, I'm actually gonna go ahead and take my 1 cup of milk and add it in. And I'm gonna take some salt and pepper, and they called for a specific amount, which is listed in the ingredients below. These are the one things that I was like, I'm not gonna measure those. So I'm just gonna go by general taste and add a little bit more or a little bit less as needed. So add a little bit, I'm using sea salt. You can use table salt or whatever you have on hand. And then pepper. And I like my spice, so I'm gonna add plenty of pepper. And we are almost done. So that is literally how you fix this meal. Unless you want to do the immersion blending, this is where things are at. So the end result looks a little bit creamy. It does need to get hot and it does need to really let the flavors meld a little bit more. I like topping the end result with coconut shreds as well, just to give it, since I'm not using coconut milk, give it that nice little coconutty flavor, a little bit more of that Indian taste feel. So we're gonna let that get a little bit hotter, heat it up a little bit. Now I'm also serving mine with some crackers. These are crackers I picked up from Central Market, which is a store that is specifically in Texas, I believe. It's very much like a Whole Foods, so you can probably find something similar if you have a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's nearby. But these are cheddar seed crackers. They're made with 100% whole wheat organic flour with organic cheddar with 4 different seeds as well. So pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, maybe chia seeds, and one other seed that is failing me right now, but there's some quinoa in here too. So they're pretty darn healthy crackers, and they're a nice switch from, say, your normal kind of cracker aisle type cracker. So there's some nutritional value to them. And since there's some cheddar flavor in them too, since we're doing a broccoli soup and it's not a broccoli cheese soup, it's a nice addition to just throw a couple on the side and enjoy it that way. They would also, I tasted one right before this. I'd never had one before, and they would taste really good with hummus. So if you're still going for kind of that, you know, Asian flavor, curry, hummus, it would be a good match. All right, now because I used the 2 bags of broccoli, and previously I used 1 bag of broccoli, I can attest that there's a lot more broccoli in this end result. Fancy that, right? So if you're using 1 bag of broccoli, it's not gonna look quite the same as this, because there's just not gonna be as much broccoli. But there's still a lot of broccoli, because one of those bags of broccoli is like 3.5 full servings of broccoli. So it's a good deal either way. If I'm up to 7 servings of broccoli here, that's a lot of broccoli, a lot of vegetables. So with, you know, a cup or 2 of this, you're gonna get a good start on your vegetable servings for the day. All right, it is nice and hot. I don't know if you can see that steam popping up over the top, but I'm gonna go ahead and serve some up. And when it comes to soup, I love my broth. I love a brothy soup. All right, so that is what we look like before we add some coconut shreds, and I forgot to pull those out, so I'm gonna grab them real quickly. And just take some nice unsweetened coconut, throw it on top there. Give it a nice flavor flav. Turn this down to simmer so it doesn't go crazy on me here. I'm gonna grab a spoon and I'm gonna give this bad boy a try. Now granted, I've had it before. I know I like it. Still good. Now because I use more broccoli, and I probably use more curry powder next time, I'm probably gonna add a little extra curry powder. Like I said, I just really like curry. So I'm probably gonna add a little more curry powder and a little bit more salt just to finally round out the flavor. But that's the beautiful thing about cooking. If it just doesn't have quite the right flavor, you can always give it a touch more. A little bit of salt. My curry powder's in a drawer. I'm not gonna grab it out yet, but that's where we're at with this. I hope you enjoy the recipe. I hope you subscribe to the channel and know that we have these every Thursday at 8:00 p.m. Central Time. They're always available after the fact as well if you can't tune in live. And then we also have our live workouts every Sunday at 3:00 p.m. Central Time. So do tune in for those as well, especially now that we're in the new year. You know, get that focus on workout and eating right and try some new things. It'll be fun. So this coming Sunday is a butt workout. You're gonna love it. And we will see you on the flip side. Thanks, guys.